Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're probably going to talk about one of the most modern things I've ever talked about, in this case being Breath of the Wild, which at this point is 6 years old. So, I don't know how modern you want to call this, but to me, this is incredibly modern, especially judging by the previous videos in the series. So, we're going to talk about specifically the Wii U version, which to me is, and I know you've heard me say this 6,000 times at this point already, but to me, it is incredibly fascinating. So we're going to go with a bit of a recap here. I think we all know what Breath of the Wild is, and I'm not going to yank your chain this time, trying to drag you along to what Breath of the Wild is. Everybody knows what Breath of the Wild is. It's a great game. This isn't really about my opinion. This is about technical stuff, but you know, Breath of the Wild is a phenomenal game no matter what platform you play it on. So, what I do want to talk about, though, is the development surrounding it to get up to the point of the Wii U version, because, again, to me, this version's far more interesting than the Switch version. Now, we will be taking a look at the Switch version for direct comparisons back to back, but obviously the star of today's video is the good old Wii U. Now, I want to have a little personal backdrop to this. So, I have not played the Wii U version before like this week, and I really wanted to check it out because if you've seen anything I've said before, you know that I like bad hardware. I like worse ports of things. You know, that's kind of my thing. And I wouldn't call the Wii U a bad piece of hardware, but I just mean in the context of comparing it to the Switch or whatever. It's a weaker, and the game runs at a lower resolution and stuff. And we're not going to get. Well, I'll save the juicy stuff for later, but. Yeah, that's kind of my thing. So I've been playing through the Wii U version, and there's just little things I'm seeing and stuff. And I'm like, I was already thinking about talking about it at some point, but I'm like, no, this is going to be the next video. I really want to talk about this. I'm just seeing like little areas where I'm seeing little dips and stuff where I'm like, oh, this is so cool, and like, why is it doing this and stuff? Because yeah, I played the Switch version, and I'm sure like a lot of other people probably did too. Like with how big of a release this was, literally coming out when the Switch came out, it's either. Did you have a Wii U? I did. I was one of the suckers that bought a Wii U during that that generation. And if you didn't have one, then you're just going to get a Switch in Breath of the Wild. But even if you did have one, probably also going to get a Switch anyways, because clearly you wanted the next Nintendo console. So yeah, I've had a Wii U since near launch. I actually really like the console. I think it's incredibly cool. It's really weird, and especially like hardware wise, it's so in between like everything at the time, because it was better than the PS3 and the 360 and a little more unified. Things made a little more sense. It had a lot more RAM in comparison. It was like 2 gigs, 1 gig being usable by games, if I'm remembering right. And if you want to make a direct comparison to the 360 being 512 megabytes and the PS3 being 2 split 256 megabytes. One of my favorite details, and I've had this stuck in my head for a while, because you have to understand, even when I was young, I really liked hardware, and I would constantly like look up before the Wii U even came out, like, oh, does anybody know what the CPU is yet? Does anybody know what kind of GPU it has? All this kind of stuff. I'm such a fanboy of hardware, and it's not just Nintendo consoles. I love like every single console. I love hardware. Maybe not the 3DO. Maybe not the Atari Jaguar. Those I kind of don't care about. But other than that, yeah. So I'm like, I would constantly look up, like, what is this gonna have? What is this gonna have? The CPU is called Espresso, or at least part of it, and the GPU is called Latte. I love coffee. I love espressos. So I'm a pretty big fan of that. Like, if I was designing a console, literally, yeah, if anything, I think I would name my GPU Espresso, because I feel like that's what's going to be doing most of the heavy lifting. So I feel like Espresso would have been a tiny bit more appropriate, but maybe somebody around there really like lattes just a tiny bit more as a whole instead of just an espresso. So very, very important hardware that we're talking about here. But like, in a sense, it actually really is important, because like, yeah, this is definitely more powerful than the PS3 and 360, and you can definitely see it at points like, think about, and there's so many things on the Wii U that I want to talk about at some point, because this console's so fascinating, and I feel like a lot of people probably just like skipped over it, like understandably. Twilight Princess HD is a really, really good example of the hardware, I feel like, because that's straight 1080p. It's still 30 FPS, but a lot of the some of the texture work was cleaned up and stuff. But yeah, it's just a raw 1080p output, which is definitely far beyond anything the PS3 and 360 was doing. And then you especially look at like Smash Bros. For Wii U, which is like 1080p and 60 FPS. Like, again, that is way beyond anything the PS3 and 360 was going to be doing. However, you can definitely tell that it still was a bit away from the Xbox One and PS4. Probably honestly by the same margin that it was away from the 360 and PS3. It's probably somewhere snug in between those two. If not closer to the 360. It's hard to say though, because a lot of multi-platform games were just like cleaned up versions of like the 360 version, which is like, it's nice and they were better, but it was, I wouldn't want to say it was lazy, but it was more like just developing it how you would like a more powerful 360, not really taking any advantage of anything crazy hardware wise that it can do. Because like, if you look at say something like I know this is random, but Black Ops 2 on the Wii U, it's like the best console version of it, but it's still not like mind blowing compared to like say if you're playing Smash Bros for Wii U, or like I said, Twilight Princess HD or Wind Waker HD, and then you look at, you know, like Black Ops 2, it's like, yeah, it's like 720p and like fully 720p if I'm remembering off the top of my head. Frame rate's great and stuff, but it doesn't have that leap in resolution or anything like that that makes it feel like, okay, this is actual next gen. It's just like, this is better current gen, you know? So it is really hard to say where the Wii U fits into here. And this is why I think Breath of the Wild is so interesting. Now, if you're anything like me, you know, you're a big fan of this kind of stuff, you were probably watching any little tidbits of trailers or information that's coming out. Do you guys remember that Zelda HD trailer thing they showed off somewhere like near? It was either before the launch of the Wii U or like right around it. I'll play a little bit of it in the background. I remember seeing that. I was like, oh my god! I was like, look at that go! And if anything, that should give you some flashbacks of some previous tech demos that went nowhere. And they always seem to be doing this with Zelda, and maybe just because like artistically you could do a little more with it than you could like, I don't know, Mario. But it's always like, look at how cool Zelda could be on new hardware, and it's like, next game is in development, looks nothing like the tech demo. It's like, all right, guys, I see what you're doing. No, but yeah, so I watched that Wii U tech demo thing or whatever. It probably wasn't even on real hardware. And I was like, wow, that looks really cool. But I think also in my head at the time, I think I knew, I'm like, it's not going to be anything like that, is it? And then later, there was like an actual more to form trailer, probably from actual development of Breath of the Wild. And that's what really started getting things stirring. And you look at that, you're like, whoa, like that's actually pretty crazy. So I'll play a little bit of that too. But essentially, that's the kind of headspace that I want you in right now. You know, we're in like middle, early Wii U stuff. And you're just going to pretend you bought a Wii U, and you're going to pretend that you like the Wii U. That way, you can pretend to be me. And I think that's very fun. But, yeah, so, you know, it's like new Zelda's coming out. The Wii U is like Nintendo's first HD console. Like, this is going to be crazy and stuff like that. And honestly, like, Breath of the Wild is kind of leagues beyond anything else the Wii U was doing. And I think you'll kind of get a feel for that, too, as we eventually get to the footage. Because, like, as I'm sitting there, like, starting a new playthrough on the Wii U and stuff, I'm so incredibly impressed with it. It really doesn't feel like something that came out on the Wii U. And in a sense, I don't think most people associate it with the Wii U. They probably associate it with the Switch. So, if anything, again, it kind of makes it feel like the underdog. And I love rooting for that kind of stuff and looking at that kind of stuff. It's always incredibly fascinating to me. The one thing that I was never a huge fan of, like, if you're playing Breath of the Wild on the Wii U, just play it on your TV. I do not like the Wii U's gamepad. It is such a cool idea, and if you're just like playing a game and there's some Wii U touchpad functionality, then it's great. But actually playing something on the Wii U gamepad and just the gamepad, that like 480p screen is garbo. I hate that. I wish it was at least 720p, and I understand it's like through like Bluetooth bandwidth stuff, or due to Bluetooth bandwidth stuff, but I'd kind of rather not have anything at all than a 480p screen, especially say like, and again, when I was younger, I didn't really know much better, but like playing like Smash for Wii U on the Wii U gamepad, if you like had something on the TV and you know, was busy or whatever, and it's like, oh my god, you're losing so much resolution using that gamepad. Like, it's cool. it's much more cool playing like Wii games on it, because at least that's kind of a 1-to-1 resolution at that point. Anyways, we're getting a little off topic. So everybody's excited. Breath of the Wild's happening, totally happening. What do they say? Like 2014 and 2015, somewhere along those lines. And it's like, all right, guys, 2016, and then 2016's happening, and it's like there's rumors of the next Nintendo console, and you're like, oh no, Then Switch gets announced. Breath of the Wild launch title on the Switch. Oh no. So obviously, I feel like, to wrap back around to my previous point, they did the very, very Twilight Princess thing of, okay, game's not going to be out by the time the next console's going to come out, so we're just going to put it on both, like, right away, and then everybody's just going to get the new version, and then nobody's going to care about the old version. I feel like for Twilight Princess, a lot of people probably still care about the GameCube version in comparison to Breath of the Wild, because it's like, it's very 1-to-1, graphically speaking. Like, I know the Wii version's probably anamorphic widescreen, and then obviously everything's flipped around, but still, like, from a graphical and performance standpoint, it's near identical, just because of the nature of how the Wii was compared to the GameCube. But with Breath of the Wild, you kind of were getting something better on the Switch, and at the time, it's like, it's portable. Why on earth would you get the Wii U version unless you weren't planning on getting a Switch? But again, if you had a Wii U, you're probably getting a Switch. So now that we're all caught up to speed here, I wanted a bit of a lore recap so you're in the same time frame as what I'm talking about, because everything is way more important when that first happens. And 10 years from now, a lot of people might not look back and think like Breath of the Wild is impressive technologically speaking, but 2017, and I feel like even now, I still think it's incredibly technically impressive, especially 6 years ago, and especially on the Wii U. Can I say espressively? Because, that is the CPU. So espressively on the Wii U, it is very impressive. So first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna show footage of the Switch version. And what I did 2 new games with like different profiles, and just went through that first like plateau area, walked around a bit, and looked at some trees, looked at some grass, looked at like the distance with the tablet thing, and like zooming in and stuff. You're gonna see different parts where I'm showing off like LOD changing and stuff when you like look through the scope thing and then look back. And I kind of just try to play in the general same area at first, because that whole opening shot is such a good comparison to have something that's somewhat 1-to-1, even though that's the thing with Breath of the Wild, nothing is ever going to be 1-to-1. As I'm getting footage, I'm trying to get the same type of weather patterns to happen on the Switch version after I already got footage of the Wii U version, and it just kept raining, and I was trying to get footage of like the sun during the day. So Breath of the Wild is not a game you can very much 1-to-1. And then I was trying to find another shrine that I already got to in the Wii U version, because that area was really buckling performance-wise, and I wanted to like do a 1-to-1 comparison. I think I skipped over that shrine in the Switch version, and then I had no idea where that patch of forest even was. But luckily, other things I did get like the same general area. So, Switch version first, and what we're going to be doing is flip-flopping back and forth between the two. So, I'm not going to copy too much of Digital Foundry's video like whatsoever, but there are certain takeaways I want to get, literally just resolution-wise. So, the Wii U version is 720p, like just 720p, and the Switch version is 900p docked, and then 720p portable. So it is a higher resolution, and something, because it's been a while since I played the Switch version, and when you see it back to back, that little bit of resolution increase does kind of more than I thought it would, and I was like, oh man, I'm like, I really am playing through the inferior version, but then I was like, nah, that's kind of what I want to do, though. I kind of revel in it. But yeah, that boost in resolution for this game's art style does a lot. It really does. But the Wii U version, and I think this is what makes it so cool, is so still decidedly Breath of the Wild. It is just like shockingly impressive. It's like, yeah, it's a lower resolution and stuff, but like it's still Breath of the Wild, and that's really impressive to me. They really, obviously, it was probably designed, not probably, it was literally designed for the Wii U in mind, but it just feels like a Switch game in my head, and maybe that's because I skipped over the Wii U port to go straight to the Switch version, but it just feels like a Switch game. It just feels like modern, and I think from some of the from a technical perspective, some of the like technical makeup of the game, graphically speaking, it is definitely starting to get to the point where like a lot of Switch games were starting to use more modern rendering techniques and stuff. And I feel like Breath of the Wild was already kind of starting to do that, even though it's still on the Wii U. Like I said, Smash for Wii U, 1080p, 60, looks great, but that looks like a really clean PS3 360 game. Breath of the Wild looks like something that actually was like next gen and actually did something to push graphical boundaries and stuff. And I think one of the best parts of this is, to me, like the grass and the trees, but like especially the grass. It's so like free flowing and windy, and there's so much movement to the grass, and it's very thick. And I don't know if this was placebo, but it looks like it was thicker on the Switch, but that really could have been placebo with not actively watching it side by side. But the grass and the movement of all the grass and stuff just feels so modern compared to, like I said, stuff we were getting beforehand. And like the open world is very seamless, even on the Wii U. There's not really any like hitches to like long hitches of loading stuff. I think during some of the towns there is like a bit of hitching going on. It's probably loading. But again, it's kind of hard to say. Like all the open world stuff works very seamlessly. The LOD isn't like crazy bad or anything. It's actually still pretty good and stuff on both pieces of hardware. The one thing that is pretty aggressive, but understandably so, is there's like, I can't tell if it's like a circle or like a flat plane in front of Link, but there's definitely a pretty bad cut off as far as LOD right in front of you, but not necessarily in the distance. It's like really aggressive with shadows and stuff right in your face as far as how detailed they are. And there's a part when I'm in like the one desert town when I'm looking at like the shadows of the tree on the Switch version, and you can see how like aggressive it is. But like at the same time, like when you see it, you notice it, you really look at it, but then after you just keep playing for a while, you kind of forget about it again. But it's something I wanted to bring up. It's cool to see kind of how it comes apart in certain areas, because then you can really tell what they're conserving on to get it to run as well as it even does. So, and I think it's probably just as aggressive on the Wii U version, honestly. It doesn't, in my head, I was thinking, like, especially in the beginning area, I'm like, maybe it's slightly better, but I really don't think it is. I think it's like, this game really is just like some texture quality on the Switch version is better just due to how it's getting filtered. The audio quality is supposedly better. I can't hear anything. And then obviously the biggest one, I mean, textures are kind of a big deal, especially if you're looking at like some of the rockier surfaces. They do tend to get kind of muddy and kind of low res on the Wii U, but again, you're not always seeing it that close up and stuff. Like you're going to climb a rock and then you're going to be done with it, you know? But yeah, the biggest thing is the resolution being 900p as opposed to 720p. But again, the 720p still looks really good. And again, especially for the hardware, it's just kind of crazy how good this game looks. And it all really comes down to its shading and its art style and stuff like that. And like I said before, like there's a lot of movement in the environment. There's a lot of movement in the trees. There's a lot of movement in the grass. I really like the way water looks in this game. There's going to be parts of the footage where I'm just like literally staring at a puddle or like a tiny bit of a lake, because I love the way water looks in this game. I don't know what it is. Like this art style is so cool to me. I really like it. It's super, not unique, but it was like the smartest call to eking out this much power between how weak comparatively the Wii U and the Switch was to modern architecture. But they really made it feel like it was something that was modern and worth looking at and stuff. And again, it's so impressive seeing this run on a Wii U, something that has more in line with the PS3 and 360 than like the PS4 and Xbox One. It is so incredibly impressive to me. So let's get into some specific details. And at this point, we've seen a bit of the plateau. We've seen a bit of both. I'm probably staring at the sun in a couple of clips because I really love the lighting in this game. But Kakariko Village is how I think you're going to pronounce that. Oh, God, I hope I'm right. Yeah, this area, once I got here, I was like, oh yeah, we need to talk about this. And I think people were talking about it when it came out, but this area buckles the Wii U bad. It's like, I want to say sometimes it's about 20. It's about 20 FPS, I think. It maybe there's a couple of drops lower than that, but it's definitely hitting 20. Like, it's not good. We're getting some shots. I'm looking at the village from different angles and stuff like that. And it's just like no part of it runs good, like at all. So you can really start to see specific instances of where this game is just doing too much. And that's why this game is so smart, again, I think, with its hardware, because it's like, there's not going to be any major spoilers for the game or anything. If you somehow haven't played it, don't worry too much. But so much of this game is just like, there's not many people, and it's kind of dead and desolate and stuff like that. And it fits, and it's like, you really feel like kind of alone in the world besides like the monsters and like besides villages. But like when you're just exploring, it really feels like it's just you doing stuff, which, like I said, I think it fits very well. But yeah, when you start getting to populated areas like towns and stuff, well, Kakariko Village specifically, then it buckles a lot. And I thought in my head, I'm like, I thought I remember the Switch version like being like completely smooth 30 throughout that. But it's not. There actually is a couple of drops even on the Switch version, but it's like, it's way more aggressive on the Wii U. And it's probably due to how much is going on resolution wise. I bet if you're doing portable play, I didn't test this out, I should have, but portable stuff on the Switch, I bet that version run fine. It's probably buckling the GPU is my point, and that little bit of resolution probably go a long way. But that's not the only area. And this is something I noticed when I was playing, like when I started my Wii U playthrough. You're doing the first couple shrines and stuff, and you get to like the first shrine, and you're overlooking some water and stuff like that. And even this area, something about it, the hardware doesn't like it very much. It's buckling under this too. And I think we're starting to see somewhat of a pattern here. So at first I want to be like Kakariko Village, that's going to be the worst part, and it kind of is. But then, all right, there's some water and stuff going on here, and there's a couple of enemies. So maybe that has something to do with it, but other areas aren't running that bad. So, well, I'm still a little unsure at this point what exactly is causing it to buckle exactly. Because like you look at like the beginning plateau area with the shrine, it's like it's not that crazy what's going on. So, compared to it running almost as bad as Kakariko Village, I'm like, I don't understand what's going on here. But when you kind of look in the distance, I think this is what's going on. Is because it's very open, and you can clearly still see like the Temple of Time in the background and stuff. And here's a really good comparison when you see the two. It's like the smaller, more intricate details really clean up with just that tiny boost in 900p in the Switch version, and it starts to get a little muddy and a little messy on the Wii U. But again, it's a Wii U game. This looks incredible still, but there's another difference to that point. Like, yeah, just like because it's not necessarily like looking out at trees and stuff. Like that kind of just looks good, both 720p and 900p. But those don't have as like refined details as like some of the texture work on the stone buildings and stuff like that. So I'm starting to think it's just loading too many objects and stuff like that in these kind of areas. And I think what will really prove this point is we got some footage. I keep saying we. This is a one-man show. Support me by liking the video, commenting, subscribing. Would really appreciate that. It goes a long way. So there's a forest area. Well, there's plenty of forest areas, but the one specific one I went to in the Wii U version, and especially when you're like climbing up in a tree and some of the leaves are supposed to have like some transparency and stuff going on, this game suffers. The Wii U is dying at this point, and the forest has so much going on. If you make an explosion like through like those red barrels and stuff, those cause pretty bad drops and stuff. But yeah, I think like overall the forest areas, especially when you can tree, those are probably the worst. And there's like a section next to one of the shrine that had water, it had an enemy, it had a bunch of trees. I purposely caused a fire to happen to tank the frame rate even more. And that's where I feel like this game is struggling the most. Just literally it's the forest. It's the more green areas and stuff like that. Like Kakariko Village, which is very heavy with that kind of stuff. And I know that it's going to make the footage a little boring, because I did get some footage of like the desert areas and the desert town, and the desert town doesn't run bad like on either version, but like even on the Wii U versions, and actually I didn't really notice it dropping. I think like a tiny bit, but like nowhere near the levels of Kakariko. So I think we can kind of pinpoint what's happening here is once we start getting too much like trees and leaves and not grass, because grass seems kind of okay, but yeah, too many enemies, maybe the water, but I don't know if the water just happens to be in spots that also are running bad, because then again, you look at like the desert town and it's like running fine, and there is some water there, so I don't know if we can exactly pinpoint it. And again, a lot of what I have to do is guesswork, because there's no information on this. I can't tell you exactly what's going on, but it's fun to speculate, and it's fun to make an educated guess and look at what's going on and how these games are working and how these games are running. Because to me, it's incredibly fascinating. Whenever I'm playing something, I always want to know what exactly is going on, why it's going on, what's going to stress it, how much can we push it. And I feel like if you're watching this video, you care about that too, and you kind of want to get to the bottom of this too, as much as we can reasonably assume, at least. So, yeah, so there's some footage of some desert areas, the desert town, but it's not incredibly interesting, except for just a contrast to see that, hey, this runs like fine in both versions. So, and unfortunately, with my current Wii U playthrough, I've only kind of went to the bottom left and then kind of just stuck in the middle area so far, just kind of taking my sweet time. So I don't have any like shrines to teleport to in like some of the rockier volcano-y areas and stuff, or any like the Zoro's domain stuff. So I can't exactly make all the direct comparisons. Like my Switch version, I have like a finished file, but the Wii U version, I'm not going to try to play through the entire game for this video right now, because I don't know if I'm going to finish this playthrough. It was more of a technical curiosity. It is enjoyable, though. But I feel like with some of the beginning areas, it luckily is the most stressful areas to be looking at. So I really think it comes down to trees and forest and fire and everything. But for the most part, though, it's like it does drop frames, and it is a lower resolution stuff. But it really is like genuinely impressive to me. It still has all of the same identity as Breath of the Wild. So there's a couple of quirks we could talk about too while we're at it. One of which I found it really funny, because I'm playing like Master Mode or whatever for the first time, playing on the Wii U version, and there's some other DLC stuff. There's a Nintendo Switch shirt that's also still in the Wii U version. I was wearing that for a while on the Wii U version because I just thought that was kind of funny. But other things, like when you're using like a Pro controller, there's no gyro aiming and stuff, and I'm pretty sure there was with the Switch Pro controller. That's something you can only do with the Wii U gamepad. Not the most interesting comparison or anything like that, but just some more info to get out there. Something that I thought was kind of cool. Maybe not cool. I don't have direct footage of this, but you really don't need it. So, like on the Switch, you can press the home button, there are your main menus there, and then you go back in, and your game's still playing. So, and for the most part, that's how Wii U games work too. But I think this is doing something like Smash Bros. For 3DS, and I know it's random, but hear me out. So, on Smash Bros. For 3DS, and I'm talking about like base 3DS, I don't think I've ever played it on like new 3DS hardware. That game is using so much resources, and it's digging into the resources that the OS uses, that when you press the home button, it slows to a crawl in like the OS menu, and then when you go back into the game, then it's kind of cool. I think Breath of the Wild is doing something similar, because when you press the home button in this game, it's fine, but when you go back into the game, you have to like wait for it to load again, which I have not seen another Wii U game that exhibits that behavior. So I'm wondering if it's borrowing like even more system memory or something from the OS that maybe normally games can't access or won't access or whatever, and then it has to reallocate whatever resources it was borrowing back to Breath of the Wild, and then load that back in, and then keep that running, or get that running again. So I just thought there was a little quirk that I thought was kind of interesting I wanted to talk about. But to bring this all back, basically, I am kind of blown away by this port. Port? Nope. Probably wouldn't use that word. The Switch version is probably the port. You would think. I'm assuming. So I think this is the most impressive Wii U game, and I think it's such a good like swan song for this system that at the same time people would have probably, just like I said, completely overlooked, which is like why I wanted to take a look at it today. This was, from what I read, this was like the last Nintendo published Wii U game. It wasn't the last Wii U game published, but this was like the last game Nintendo published on the Wii U. And it's so interesting how ingrained all of the development of this game was just on the Wii U and like for the Wii U, to kind of have it just shift focus at the end and then be a Switch game. Because like, like I said, and I think everybody thinks this way. When you think of Breath of the Wild, you think of the Switch. You think of it being like a Switch launch title and stuff. You're not thinking about the Wii U version, and it's a really good example of how, like, personally, I love the Wii U. I love like every game I got on it, like especially like the first party stuff. But some of the ports were great too. But everything that the Wii U can do and every important aspect of it is like pretty much has been taken over by the Switch. Like, pretty much every game is just better on the Switch. There's no reason to play the Wii U versions, but I still find myself going back to the Wii U. And one, because it's a really easy Wii with a digital out with the HDMI. Like, when you got to fire up Tatsunoko versus Capcom, I'm just going to play the Wii U, I don't, because I'm not huge on emulation. I have zero problems with emulation whatsoever. I'm just a sucker for real hardware, and the Wii U's virtual Wii mode is very close to me, and then, raw HDMI out. But also, I've been enjoying kind of just going back and playing Wii U versions of stuff, even if I have the Switch version and they're better. And so there's just something so fascinating about such a failed console. And not that I think the console was bad. I just think, like, and people have speculated this before, but like, I just don't think anybody knew what it was, what to do with it, why they should want it and stuff. And it's like, only if you're like not casual. Like, I don't know why your grandma would need a Wii U compared to a Wii. I mean, like, which one's going to play Wii bowling for cheaper, It's not going to be the Wii U. But, like, it's just, the other thing I think that I really appreciate about it is just the fact that it was like the last home console Nintendo has done so far. And I have a good feeling that I don't think they're going to do another one of these for a long time. Like, with how successful the Switch was as a portable console, and obviously you can dock and stuff, but at its heart, it's a portable console. With how successful that was, there is no way whatever hardware successor they're going to do is going to be a home console. I just don't see that happening. And again, I think that's what makes this such a unique time capsule, and that's what this is all about. I wanted to talk about a really weird time period in Nintendo gaming a really weird time in gaming as a whole. I don't want to sound like an icky fanboy, that hasn't been replicated since, and I don't think is ever going to be replicated. The Wii U was such a weird time. It's like, all the first party stuff was so good. It was like really good stuff. You had like Super Mario 3D World, you had the Smash Bros. For Wii U, you had like some of the HD Zelda stuff, like Mario Kart 8, like everything was like so good. I guess if you want to throw Tokyo Mirage Sessions up there, but also all that stuff, just play it on the Switch. There's no reason, except if you're dumb like me and you like worse hardware. So, Breath of the Wild is the ultimate culmination of very stupid, why would you play this version when you could just play the Switch version? And it is that to its peak. I'm in love with this version. It is worse in just about every way. They cut out almost all the gamepad functionality that it was supposed to have. I mean, you can play it on the gamepad, but like I said, why would you do that? And that's really emblematic for the kind of stuff I get fascinated by. I like dumb ports, I like weird ports, and what's dumber and weirder than Breath of the Wild on the Wii U? I hope I didn't talk your ear off too much. I kind of wanted to reminisce a little bit about the Wii U while I was at it, and this isn't going to be the last time I talk about it, but for the sake of this video, I'm gonna leave it off. Leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed talking about Breath of the Wild for a little bit. I implore you, like I say for all of my videos, go and check out this version and play it. And thank God Nintendo took down the eShop, because that's going to be really helpful when it comes to trying to play the Wii U version. You'll figure it out, though. So, that being said, I already said it earlier, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you want to see more of this kind of stuff. I think it's like that's the kind of stuff you're supposed to say. But honestly, I don't really care. I'm going to make more of this stuff regardless. Consider that however you want to consider that later.